Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge, a podcast that has morphed. We will get to a Gene Wilder movie this year, we promise, but while we are not looking at a movie right now 1 minute at a time, we are looking at the person's life that is our guest 1 moment at a time. I'm your host, I'm Alan Sanders.
I'm your co-host, Walt Murray.
And Walt, this is the first time we are ever going to be doing this since we started the Listeners Lounge. We are going to have a returning guest from season 3.
Yeah, whenever we start scheduling people, we always talk about, who are our best options, who did we maybe from last season feel like we didn't get enough from, and Tim was the first name to pop up.
Oh, so, I thought you were going to say we go through our list of people we could get, and then after we don't get them, we go to the next list and pick the people that we,
who is foolish
feel
enough
obligated,
to join us.
Oh, all right, Mom, can you come on one more time?
Yeah, once we
get to cool. It's the host's wife. That's always fun.
Well, sometimes it can be. This will get juicy.
Well, hey, look at if that's going to happen, we're going to kick Tim off and we're going to bring my wife on right now.
No, not like that.
We have a juicy in our house means somebody you got out the thing for the oranges and started making home squeezed, and that's about it. That's the pinnacle of my life. You want to squeeze some melons? Yes, the cantaloupes feel great. That's it.
Yeah. So I know.
It's marriages evolve. That's what I try to explain to especially younger people. Like, it's great to be hot and heavy and can't wait till the youngins now be like, oh, hey, we'd love to play online. It's 9:00. We have to go to bed. I'm like, 9:00. You're going to bed at 9:00.
Right.
Don't lie to me. I appreciate you trying to save my feelings. I know what you're doing. But I said, that eventually does go away. Well, at least it has for me. So,
well, what do they say, that marriages either evolve or devolve? Is that the right?
Yeah, mine's evolved all right, and it's evolved into a great, wonderful relationship devoid of any sexual activity whatsoever. I take that back. That's not.
I almost grabbed my coffee cup. Then I'm glad I didn't.
No, you know what though? I will tell you. And my wife and I talked about this, and I've mentioned this before on previous episodes. She started the idea with me at the beginning of this year, and we've got a separate podcast that we call the Marriage Fit Podcast, which is a great excuse for us to have to get together. I don't want to say have like it's a duty, but to force us to have that time where we have to think about what are we going to talk about today. And it's really been great for us, no matter what. It's been great conversation. But one of the things we've mentioned before, because we never thought we were going to end up being married to each other, let alone that we were ever going to get remarried. So we ended up being actually really good friends first. And the cool thing about having somebody as a friend, you don't put up any fronts. Like, I wasn't trying to pretend like date number one, I'm going to show up in like a nice suit or a nice shirt and, khaki pants and everything. I wear shorts and a t-shirt and well, that's how she knows me. I didn't have to put on airs, and she didn't with me because she never thought there was ever going to be anything. We were just friends. We actually had that weird
She could not possibly conceive of a scenario where she would be with you.
That's exactly right. Like, in her mind well, no. What it was, Walt, what it was is I didn't have a reason to put up a pretense because I wasn't looking for anything beyond. We were just, friends. Right? I mean, I have a lot of female friends. I still have friends from high school that thanks to Facebook and other social media things, I've been able to rekindle. I'll have coffee dates and stuff with female friends that are just friends. They're just people that I grew up with. I just know. You've got female friends.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So when that magic little moment happened, the uh-oh moment, we're like, are we going to do this? We actually were panicked because we were moving into a completely different area now because we already knew all of our dirty laundry. We already knew all of our bad habits. We were friends for so long It was weird. There's nothing I can't pretend to be something I'm not anymore. I can't, it's too late. She's already seen all the warts.
Right. And she decided that,
and she still married me.
She was just going to scrape the bottom of the barrel and hope for the best.
Well, but you know what? In some ways, being with your best friend day in and day out, if this pandemic hasn't taught us anything, it's, do you really like your spouse? Think about that. How many people have gotten divorced in 2020? How many people couldn't even last with a marriage 6 months because they're like, I can't stand being with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm that's it. I'm out. I'm going back to mom's.
Well, you talk about it with the empty nesters, that happens a lot too, that all of a sudden you're staring at each other across the table going, the kids were what we had in common.
Right. Yeah, that happens. Ironically, that was one of the first things we talked about in our first episode. We don't want to be that because our youngest is in college. She's pretty much moved out. We are pretty much empty nesters. And it's really weird to think of ourselves as, wait, no more kids? What do we do now? Do you want to, what do we do? Don't drink, don't smoke?
You camp.
We camp.
You glamp, whatever it is that y'all do outside in nature. And, yeah, I mean, you kind of have to reinvent yourself again.
Mm-hmm. But getting back to my point, the fact that we are best friends first, or we were best friends first, I have not minded being in the same house 24/7. We both have home-based businesses. We see each other all the time, except for when I leave for radio or she has to leave to go to an off-site client. But we're around each other all the time, and I don't mind it. And I think she doesn't mind it either until I do something wrong. But that's typical for most marriages. So,
well, it just gives her a chance to, really unload on you and vent some frustration.
Well, like all women, she has that gift of being able to say, and while we're at it, let me bring up everything that you've ever done wrong, because now's an appropriate time to remind you of just what an idiot you are.
Well, of course, you got to take those opportunities.
Well, but I give her those. I want to. I give her plenty on a daily basis, apparently. So, well, before we get to our guest, which, by the way, I mentioned his name, Tim Andrews, one of the multiply talented guys from the von Haessler Doctrine, man of 1,000 voices, the guy who brings you Radio Labyrinth every week. We talk about it on our show here. Before we bring him on, I always want to ask, how were you doing this week?
I'm doing good. Actually, I wanted to tell a funny story. My sister, who listens to our show.
Why don't you let me be the judge? You tell the story. I'll let you know if it's funny.
Okay. No, it's funny.
Okay.
So my sister's a lot like me, just super outgoing and always around people. And that's where she gets her energy and everything. So, of course, she married a great guy. I love her husband to death. Deadhead and all that. Harvard grad. His master's is from Harvard. Smart guy, but not an extrovert. He's quiet, introverted. So when Ashley gets the idea, hey, we're going to have 50 people over for dinner,
does he start breaking out in hives,
fading into the hedgerow?
He's like the Homer, like
exactly. So Ashley again is a lot like me, just kind of a bull in life's china shop. So getting organized, getting the house ready, it's crazy. They got 2 young kids. They've got a dog. So they finally, 30 minutes before everybody gets there, everything's ready. And they live in South Georgia, where you'll get a torrential rainstorm and it is just a mess. And then it's gone and it's bright sunshine and humid. So they had one of those blow through. So she is all ready for everybody to come over. And the dog had been outside during the rainstorm, and her big plush frog toy apparently had been laying in a mud puddle. And so in she comes with her frog toy, gets about a foot inside the house where the dining room table and everything is, and just starts shaking her head for all it's worth. Mud and sand and water go everywhere. And of course, my brother-in-law is like, he is just totally freaking out. My sister's like, let's just get a couple of towels, do our best, and be done with it. So,
well, what can you do? I mean,
no, at that point, kill the dog.
I got to tell you, and you've got a new dog. You've got Moose.
Yeah.
As much as they can every now and then do something boneheaded, like track mud in and stain the brand new white pillowcase. Not that I would know from experience from the last 2 weeks, because they like to curl up on my pillow when I'm done. They are always there for me. Like every time I want to just lay down and cuddle or snuggle, or I have 3 dogs that are immediately like whoosh, stuck to me. It's incredible. For those people who don't get dogs or don't love dogs, I don't understand you. And they're probably saying the same thing about me. How do you let a 4-legged, dirty, filthy animal in your bed? Like easy, because it always is there. I would rather spend time with my dogs than most people.
Yeah, well, the bad thing with Moose is if he's in my bed, nobody else is in my bed. He is gigantic. So
you need a bigger bed.
I guess so.
See, my wife was like, we're getting a king-size bed because she knew she's very much like me, loves our dogs. She doesn't want them hanging on the bed all day. Like, that's not the dog bed, but at nighttime, all the dogs, everyone is on our bed.
Yeah, Moose is just big and loud and imposing, and he thinks he owns everything, so he's not quite to that point yet.
Well, dogs help prepare you for being a parent.
I'm already a parent. I'm good.
Yeah, but someone who's not, at least for a few more weeks, let's go ahead and park that curtain and bring in our returning guest. Folks, put your hands together for Tim Andrews. Tim, welcome to the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge.
Well, thank you for having me back.
What the hell kind of voice was that?
I don't know.
It's game show, Tim. All right.
Thank you for having me back.
You know what's going to be great about this time? We don't have to go moment by moment with you since the last time, because we already did that. So now we get to catch up on actual current events for you, because we talked about you. I don't know, you don't have time with your busy schedule. I'm sure you never listened to all of our episodes, but I actually mentioned, while my wife and I are empty nesters at age 50, you, who are pretty much on the same birthday as me, are getting ready to introduce the world to the very first Tim Andrews Jr.
That is correct. That's not going to be his name, but yes, he is due in a couple of weeks, and we got our house prepared. We're ready to go, and we're looking forward to it. It's weird, man. I look back, and everybody that I grew up in high school, nobody's doing this at 50. They've all done it, and they're all empty nesters, most of them. And even my brother, I think his daughter is either 10 or almost 10 years old. So that's pretty amazing.
But on the flip side, and I don't know how much you want to go into it, I am so happy for you and Caitlin, because I know this was a blessing, long time coming.
Yeah, she and I had been trying IVF for a number of years. And I think this was our 4th attempt at it. And this one worked. And she has done, people say, oh, my spouse is so great and everything. And I'm not one of those people, but I will this time say that. I mean, she's just incredible with the amount of work and dedication, and you have to change your diet. And, if anybody who's gone through that knows that, the wife has to have shots every single night for months to make sure their hormones are right. And they just do so much. And, she's just done an amazing job, and she's been a great pregnant wife. So we're looking forward to both, being parents, but just, I'm amazed at, because I'm like, if I have a headache, I can't do anything for a month. Oh, I don't feel good.
Yeah.
Not only is she carrying around, a bowling ball in her belly, but she has to give birth too, so it's just amazing to me, this whole thing, that I never thought I would ever be a father, and let alone ever be married. And yet I found somebody, and she's wonderful. And, she civilized me to a degree. I'm still a slob.
Oh yeah. I've heard some of your backstories. You married up.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And, well, let's not say that, because for me to say that means she married down. I think we're equitable.
Well, no,
balanced.
for women, that's okay, because you're a project.
Yeah, that's true.
See, as you may have heard from the intro, my wife is a never-ending font of things for me to do. My to-do list is actually on the infinity symbol. It just never goes away. I can never say I'm done. There's always something new. So they love that.
I always have to look at YouTube for how to do things, because I don't know how to do it. Before we moved into this house 4 years ago, I hadn't cut the grass anywhere in almost 20 years. And that's no lie. I mean, I moved to Atlanta in, 1996. And the last time I cut somebody's yard was in 1994. So yeah, that's a long time.
Well, there is, I've been a parent for a long time, longer than I want to admit.
Mhm.
And I remember when we kind of did it backwards. We had 2 foster children who are now our oldest 2 daughters come live with us. And then my wife got pregnant in the middle of all that. So we kind of did everything backwards. But, people gave us all the books to read and all that stuff. And I'll tell you, the books, man, they're probably good guidelines, but until you're really in the mix, it's probably like trying to describe what war's like by reading a book.
Yeah. Oh, it was loud.
Yes,
When you
exactly.
said that, I was thinking like the Pirates of the Caribbean, where they were talking about, they're not really rules. They're more like guidelines. Like you've got a basic tenet of what it is to be a parent, but until you are one, I mean, you could write 100 books and still not identify your specific child with that child's specific tendencies. I had 4 raised under the same house with the same rules, with the same everything, and I have 4 unique individual children who don't respond to the same thing. You know how frustrating that is? One child, if I say, go to your room, she's like, okay, cool, I can read. I'm like, okay, no, you go out and cut the grass. The other child, you go to your room. Oh, no, I don't want to go to my room. I'd rather be on my PlayStation. I mean, there is no rule book. There really is no rule book.
Go to your PlayStation a punishment? Go to your PlayStation.
I don't want to play PlayStation. I want to be outside. Yeah, no, my kids were all over the freaking place. Well, I'm sure yours were exactly the same, because I know your youngest gave you plenty of adventures. Oh,
all 3 of them have. I mean, but it's great. I mean, and we were talking to Tyson Clavo about this a couple weeks ago from the Falcons, that each of your kids, you love them the same, but you take each one and you treat them different because they're different.
Mm-hmm.
And I swear it is like, trying to catch knuckleballs most of the time, because you never know what's coming. Every time my phone rings, it's like, what is this adventure? So,
Tim, I mean, it's too late. You've got one on the way. You can't now go back on it.
My question: you guys raised your kids in the 2000s and beyond, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So we're all roughly the same age. When I was 6, 7, 8, all the way till I was 10 or 11, we were free range kids. In a small town in Pennsylvania, everybody knew who you were pretty much, or knew your parents, or whatever. I remember wandering around, and I had a time I had to be home, but I didn't have a phone to look at to check that time. And even up until about 15, because you're 15, you start hanging out with you're a teenager, you get 16, 17, and then you make Jeff Liebach drive you all over town all the time. That was our Friday and Saturday. As soon as Jeff got his license, we were either going to the movies or cruising every night in our town. But before that, so nowadays it's 2021, I don't think parents let their kids wander all over the place. Like, I'm not going to let our son wander all over Tucker by himself.
Depends where you live. I'll tell you, we live a little bit more. Well, you've been up to Cartersville. It's a little bit more on the outskirts, and there's still plenty of fields and country. Where we live, my wife and I actually encourage. We've got these trails, all that run behind our house, that run along some Georgia Power easements, so they go for miles. And we were like, we told our girls, go out there, go enjoy. Now, they had cell phones, which of course we didn't have as kids, but we tried to encourage as much. Get outside, go explore, bought them bikes, limited their video game time. And I'm a gamer. I still to this day play video games, and there's games we play now now that they're adults, we'll play some of the same, multi MMO games.
Yar's Revenge.
No. If I showed them Yar's Revenge, they would just laugh. They would just
Pac-Man.
It'd be like when I showed them the movie Willow and they crushed my will. They were just like, "This looks like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer kind of stuff." It's like, I'm like, "Oh dear, okay." No, seriously, we tried to, and I think you can too. I think the biggest thing is we do have technology that I think is cool. Like when they're driving their cell phones, we have the Life 360 app. We can always see where they are. We can create hotspots where we'll get a little ping that says, Sophie just arrived at work, or Lexi just arrived home. And it's kind of like a digital leash, but at the same time, we don't abuse it. At least we don't.
Mm-hmm.
So we made a conscious effort. We said, you're going outside. You're not going to be raised indoors.
Yeah, we have a big backyard, so that'll be something we can encourage too.
Oh, you got a yard. Well, that'll be great for the first 6 years, but what about that? What after? What about after? What about after that? I mean, they need to like grab a backpack and make a packed lunch and go just in the woods for a day.
Oh, well, I'm going to want to move out of Tucker before then. Maybe live up where you guys live.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, right across the street from us is a big wooded area. So it would have been great, but my girls were kind of in between the younger kids in the neighborhood and the older kids in the neighborhood. So they didn't have, what we had when I was growing up, and it was kind of that pack, where we all got together, we all played baseball, we all hung out, we all, ran around the woods and shot each other with BB guns and all that stuff.
Yeah,
we did that too. Shoot each other with BB guns, and we would. There was always a crabapple tree, and you'd get those sticks, and you'd point the stick, and you'd whip crab apples at each other. That was fun.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Bottle rockets.
Yeah.
Eggs, whatever you could find.
Oh,
so
when we discovered bottle rockets in the movie Tron, it was frisbees and bottle rockets all summer long in the field outside. We had range wars.
We would get crazy and invent things to do at night. Like my friend Matt and I would take a football and put a ski mask on it and then drag it across the road when cars were going by. We'd pretend we would, we figured out how to make the Caro syrup and food coloring to make the fake blood. And we set it up where the bike was askew and the tire was spinning and I was there all bloody and he was pretending to pound on me. And then a car would drive by and we'd go and hide and people would, hey, get out of the road, hey, hole. And then they'd be like, no, some kids were fighting and I don't give a damn.
See,
well, I mean, we didn't have what we have now.
Here's the thing. Keep all these memories in mind. All I can tell you, because there is no advice. I mean, there really isn't. I mean, you can ask for advice to just kind of add it to the tips. But, remember all the things you did. And remember the things that you say to yourself now as an adult, how in the hell was I allowed to do that? And maybe stop those things. But at the same time, you are who you are because of the adventures you went on.
Exactly.
Well, and it's weird too, because my brother and I get together and our kids are just mesmerized by the stories of all the crap that we did and got away with. And a lot of it we're like, you can't do that now. Now the consequences are completely different. And now people have cell phones with cameras on them. And so you got to be really aware and careful and smart. And I mean, I just think about like mailboxes getting blown up in the neighborhood and all that kind of crap.
Bags of poop left on people's porches. You can't do that with those damn rings on people's doors now, filming everything.
Well, I remember one night we left Winn-Dixie with 120 rolls of toilet paper.
What would you need 120 rolls of paper?
I know the manager's like, what's going on here? We're like, oh, nothing. My mom is sick. Like,
she's got IBS.
Yeah. That hasn't even been invented yet.
So we're packing this crap in our cars, to every square inch. And, so one of our friends' houses looked like it snowed that night. But you can't do stuff like that anymore. And get away
actually, they do that here in Cartersville still. There's a big
toilet paper homes.
There's an initiation, and actually some kids feel left out. The incoming freshmen for Cartersville High School, the junior class that's going to be the seniors gets assigned whose house they have to go roll.
Wow.
And every one of my daughters, my house got rolled 4 times for all 4 of my girls. But there were some girls that would either get, for whatever reason, they were new to the system and got missed. And there were parents who were upset their girl didn't have the house rolled. So that's still a tradition up here, which is kind of cool. I think it's cool because it's just toilet paper. Yeah. And, you clean it up right away before all the dew and everything makes it stick to the trees for like the next 3 years.
What about the tree?
All right, Tim, let me ask you this. When it comes to, here's a difference, and you're going to be dealing with this. My girls were just at the point where social media was hitting them just as they were in middle and high school. And I really caution them about what you put online is online forever. And thankfully, so far, as far as I know, unless they which they may have created some like pseudo accounts and fake accounts to hide stuff from us, they should be okay. But it's getting worse. Whatever you put online, people are using. Did you hear about that NFL player just recently? One of the top drafts. They're going after him because when he was 13 years old, he wore to a Halloween party a Nobama t-shirt. And now they're thinking how insensitive that is. That do we really want this guy representing the NFL? He was 13.
When he was 13 years old. Yeah, that's stupid. Yeah. Completely. No one. I'm so glad we didn't have that because the costumes that I wore my grandmother made me an Indian costume for Halloween once. I was you know what I mean? Like, the feathers and all that stuff.
Yeah,
so,
Oh, don't you
and
make
then-
a who?
no, not that. You better apologize to Hank Azaria.
Oh, Hank
No,
Azaria he's such a bad man. He spank myself. I've been bad for making fun of these people.
But I
sounds like what did I? Why did
Sorry,
I agree to
Tim.
this?
no. One year, I think it was in the early '90s, we had a Halloween party, and I had a camera, and so I went around my 35 and kind of archived everything. I went as a feminazi, but I was making fun of Rush Limbaugh. So, I mean, because I was super liberal at the time, and I listened to his show, but I was still like, oh, he calls all these women feminazis. So I dressed up like that. I even had the little mustache and everything. And that would be misconstrued. That would be misconstrued as me being pro whatever. But I was actually making fun of the right. But anyway, yeah. I who even knows what social media will be by the time our son is able to get on a computer and stuff. But I guess I've seen my cousin's kids. They're on tablets as soon as they're 2 years old, and they can play all the games and they know all this stuff. So who knows?
One thing I can tell you, and this sounds like an old man, but we're all the same age. Try to limit that as early for as long as you can. I mean, because there are a lot of studies we're reading now, and we're so thankful because my wife is a voracious reader. I'm an okay reader, but we were in theater. We did a lot of free expression, a lot of writing. We forced our kids to do things with their hands, like get crayons out in color and get Play-Doh and make things, because we're finding out that a lot of these kids that live in the tablet world, they can navigate the tablet, but their creativity is so stunted because they haven't worked in a 3D world, a true 3D world. They haven't touched things and played with things and seen, like grabbed the pots and pans and become, made drums out of them.
Isn't the temptation for some people to use the computers or to use the tablets as this will distract the child from
definitely babysitter. I see so many parents, especially younger parents, which, by the way, because you are older, you actually will have the wisdom we didn't have when we had our kids. Right. So thankfully we didn't have that temptation to go, just give him an iPad and he'll be quiet for the next 6 hours so we can binge Game of Thrones. Look, look, you're a parent now. That means your life has changed. And I can't tell you the number of people my wife and I knew who said, you know what? My child's not changing me. I'm still going out. I'm still going to drink. I'm still going to do my stuff. Well,
millennials have kids now, I would assume.
Don't be surprised when your child's a freaking holy terror because you didn't invest any time in them.
Yeah, we're not going to be like that. Caitlin and I both are older, and we're not going to deprive the boy, but we're not going to encourage him to drift away into his own world. I was an only child. I mean, I have a half brother, but I was an only child. So my imagination was really in overdrive most of my life, early life, especially. I invented things and scenarios, and, I did a lot of characters by myself and recorded them. I wish I still had those recordings. But, the imagination wasn't based on what I saw on a little screen.
Right.
I watched a lot of TV and a lot of radio, but my imagination was based on, my brain, so I want to encourage that as much as possible.
Good.
Yeah. I think one of the coolest things that me and my buddies did is we made several attempts at this before we got it right, but we built a fort in the backyard and just drug logs together and got some rope and, it fell in on us twice and, we rebuilt it. But doing that stuff where your hands and getting muddy and all that, that is stuff that you just can't replace.
No,
damming up a creek, spending an entire Saturday damming up a creek and figuring out, if I plug it with sod, it'll make it even better.
Yes.
I love the fact that our kids, like my girls, I will tell you this, Tim, which is one of the coolest things. With digital technology, they are more music savvy than I ever was as a kid because they have access to everything.
Right.
We have an Alexa. They can just say, play this or play songs of this genre. I mean, they know more music at their age than I ever did at the same age. And that's cool. It's just learning how to create that balance to make sure that they're still tech savvy, but still existing in the real world. And I see a lot of kids who They're lost because they want to create an internet impression of who they are,
right?
And they lose who they really are.
I liked being in my grandparents' basement when I was younger. They had an old record player. And then in the 50s and 60s, they had parties, like little sock hops in their basement. And I would go down there and they still had the record player. And I go through and I found like Beep Beep. Remember that song? Beep Beep, Beep Beep. That car went beep beep beep. You remember that song? It was a novelty song.
Mm-hmm.
And then a bunch of old classic country, and they had Clarence Carter. They also had Bill Cosby, and then behind everything else, they had the Red Fox record. So I'm 13.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, the filthiest stuff you ever heard in your life,
but hilarious.
Yeah. And maybe even before that, because I mean, I knew who he was from Sanford & Son, so I was probably 10 or younger when I found those records, because he had an HBO special on, and I was 10 or 11, and I watched that.
I remember that too. And my dad walked in while we were watching it, and we thought we were hiding out in the basement, and all of a sudden he comes walking in the back door, and he's like, "What are y'all listening to?" And we're like, "Well, Red Fox." He's like, "You guys shouldn't be listening to that." And then all of a sudden he's standing there watching it with us.
Don't tell your mom.
Right.
But I like Buddy Hackett too. And then, we had HBO early. So I was 10, 11 when we got HBO, and the Buddy Hackett, who I knew from TV, but he didn't swear. I put it on and watched his stand-up special. Every word out of his mouth is a curse word.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I love Buddy Hackett. Give me a break.
Yeah, that's the thing. Playing with records, playing with albums, just letting your kids explore. I remember as a kid, my mom had a bunch of 45s. I learned all of the oldies because of her record collection. I was spinning them in my freaking room. I didn't know that they were oldies. I just were like, it's music,
I used to do the fake radio show. I had a record player with one speaker, and I had a little Panasonic cassette recorder. And so I would hit record, play. You had to push those buttons at the same time. Play the record, and the record like, "Hey, coming up." Hey, coming up. That was Queen with "We Will Rock You." Brought to you by Andrews Electric. If you need your house wired, call Meredith Andrews. Then the last 4 digits, because of the town they lived in, you only had to dial 4 number. Isn't that weird?
Wow. Yeah, and I remember, growing up mostly here in Atlanta. I moved here when I was in 5th grade. We'd go visit my grandparents in either Grenada, Mississippi, or Brunswick, Georgia. And Grenada particularly was like stepping back in time, and it was the 4-digit, but there were still some phones around town that you could pick up, and the operator would be on the other end, and you'd say, call 1234, and you'd get, I think 1234 was the post office or the town hall. I can't remember which one, but you'd still have that craziness. So, I really hate some of the stuff that my kids missed.
Yeah. Well, my wife grew up in upstate New York, and she said some of the things they would do on sleepovers is just pick up the party line and see what the people were talking about, because there were shared phone lines.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, where did she grow up?
She grew up way upstate, close to Syracuse.
Okay.
So when everybody says, "Oh, you're from New York, like the city," she's like, "No, there's a whole lot bigger state than just Manhattan." She grew up in like an area that looks just like North Georgia.
Well, like Liverpool or around that area? That's a suburb of Syracuse.
Yeah, it's Sherburne is the actual town. She said the biggest news in the last 20 years, they got a stoplight in town. I mean, that's how small it is. So
they got a Wegmans there?
It's right next to Colgate University is where she grew up.
Oh, but Wegmans is a great place to go shopping if you're up there ever.
But you know what? She was right by the Finger Lakes. If you're up there, if you know any of that area in upstate New York, and my wife and I, when we did one of our shows recently, we talked about our bucket list items, and one of them is, since I now am married to her, but I didn't know her growing up. I've never visited. I've yet to ever see her hometown. One of my bucket list items is I actually want to go see where she grew up. I think that's cool.
You've never been to the Finger Lakes?
I've never been to the Finger Lakes.
Finger Lakes are beautiful. When I go up there, I always have to drive past one of them. But I don't know, late 2000s, mid 2000s, I used to go up, and my friends' in-laws have a lake house, so we would go out and go boating. And the water, you could be in the middle of August, the water's freezing cold because they're super deep, and it's all fresh water. And they're connected by a tunnel, and that's how they get the no.
Well, from what I understand, though, which is actually another bucket list item, which I think is cool, is they've got all of a sudden in the last several years, they've got a lot of wineries and they've got a lot of distilleries. And
there've always been wineries there, but now it's all, it's just, there's too many. You know what I mean? They're everywhere.
There is no such thing as too many wineries, distilleries, and microbrews.
That's true. That's true.
If they're in walking distance, I don't have to worry about driving.
And Cuomo, he's been he's been less restrictive than previous administrations about letting stuff like that go through because they're very micromanaging. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but New York State micromanages every single thing. Like you can buy a bottle of wine at a wine store, but if you want to buy a gift bag at the wine store to put it in, it's illegal. And I was laughing when the person at the wine store told me this. So why is it illegal? Because somebody bitched.
Oh, great.
You have to go to another store to buy the wine bag. It's weird.
Crazy.
Weird.
Yeah, I'm not going to dive into my politics right now with Andrew Cuomo and all that stuff, but wow.
Well, he's just the current one. I remember. Going all the way back to when his dad was governor, and he was governor for a long time.
Yeah, Mario.
Yeah,
Mario the Pious.
And the guy before him, and I just remember because when I would go to my dad's house, you drove past the "Welcome to New York, Governor."
Mm-hmm.
They always had the governor's name on the sign, the state border.
Well, we have that for Georgia.
Yeah.
So
1995 World Series champs Atlanta Braves.
Now I know we're probably getting tight on time. I want to make sure we get to several other things if we can get to it.
Sure.
One of the things we talked about last time, and I want to give you a chance to plug it because I love Radio Labyrinth. Your podcast. It is a true pop culture podcast. You guys talk about a lot what's going on, but I love the fact that you've been really going guest heavy again, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, that kind of died down, but go ahead.
Okay, well, like most people, I save all my podcasts and then I binge them to get caught up. But for a while, you didn't have any guests besides like maybe guest quote hosts like us on where we were there, but we weren't really like an interview per se. It's been cool to listen to the kind of like a throwback to what Radio Labyrinth kind of started with.
One of our listeners, Garrett is his name, was a contestant on Forged in Fire, and Steph got everyone into that show. And I started watching. This is a great show. So we ended up having one of the judges on it, and then it turns out his shop is less than an hour from where I grew up. So I'm going to try to go visit when I'm up there next week. But yeah, I love having the guests, man. It's great. We have a guest tonight that we're recording to talk about pop culture. It's today's 420, so isn't it, or is it tomorrow? I don't know.
Tomorrow. It's 420 Eve, so
420 Eve
and milk out for.
This is where you're still drying your leaves.
But we're
he giggled.
Leaves. What is this? The 60s?
Walt's like, I got gummies, man.
It's gummies.
I'm trying out my gummies, bro.
Look, they start off this small, but when you put them in your mouth, they expand.
Yeah, like those dinosaurs.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? No, the having guests and talking more about our lives, because we can talk about TV shows and this and that. And there's a million shows to talk about, and a million movies to talk about. But we also live in a big city, and things are starting to open up a little bit more. And we have, a great partnership with Atlanta Pizza and Euro, which is in Conyers, Georgia.
Mike.
And Mike Hall, yeah, he's a great guy, man. And
the food there is fantastic.
Yeah, and we're having to get together there. I can't wait to see people again. So,
that is
I appreciate you saying that. I love having a guest.
Well, that is a huge difference between where you live and where I live. We made a comment not that long ago on one of our episodes where we said most of culture starts in the cities, especially in the densely populated urban areas, and it radiates out. So by the time, the mullet gets to the outside, everybody's like moved to something else inside the city. Mm-hmm. And I said,
when did the mullet ever go to?
I'm just being silly. But I think I think what we've seen with the pandemic is the exact opposite. We have been in restaurants, maskless, living our normal lives for the last longer than that for me. In Cartersville here, I mean, it's been, I've had people visit that go, what, did you guys not think there's a pandemic? I'm like, no, we're over it. We're done. We're done here. No, everyone here is like, no, we're done. We're just not dealing with it. And then you go drive like 10 miles south and everyone's like acting like they're in an episode of MASH. And I'm like, And I'm hoping what happens is people will decide, well, I can't do anything in my city. I'm going to go drive out to go visit the country for a little bit and visit some places out there and see how everybody's living and see, oh, wait, people aren't dropping dead. People are okay. Oh, okay. Well, maybe it'll radiate from the outside in for a change.
Right.
Well, I was in Dreamland Barbecue in Roswell today, and which is, great barbecue. And I was talking to the waiter, and he said that they basically went from 99% of their customers wearing masks to now where they're down to like 80% of their customers wearing masks. And I was like, man, that's really high, because out where I am, it's, 50% maybe. And,
I noticed the disparity in that I've been going out. We go out to eat every once in a while out here, and I've been out to eat Hiram. And, the restaurants have a lot of people in them. And last week or 2 weeks ago, I went to lunch at Ted's in Midtown.
Mm-hmm.
And that place, I used to work across the street at the Clear Channel building. And so it was always packed. You always had to wait. There were only 3 tables, including ours, in there. So 7 people.
Wow.
Really?
At lunchtime. We got our food before we even ordered it. I mean, that's how. Oh, here you go. Wow. And the wait staff was really nice. So we all over tipped, because they're busting their. I mean, if you're still working today in a food service industry, you deserve some sort of medal, because, a lot of places, even in Tucker, Starbucks is drive-through only because they don't have staff. McDonald's doesn't have staff. They're paying people to go in there and work,
Right.
But
no, well,
that's not political. I'm just saying.
That's a whole different
reality.
issue with how we've incentivized people. They can make as much, if not more, to sit home and do nothing. And I think that's a horrible thing.
Not if you work in radio.
Well, yeah, we it's a labor of love.
It is.
And a couple of things I do want to get to is you guys have been doing some bang up work on the von Haessler Doctrine. For folks who are new to the listening audience, if you didn't hear when we had Autumn Fisher on a few weeks ago, Tim Andrews is also part of that same crew, and you guys are on every day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to noon.
Yep. And then on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we do a half-hour podcast from 12:15 to 12:45 that you can watch on Facebook, or we combine everything for later in the day. Yeah, I mean, we did that for almost a year from home. And now I'm back at the station, and when Eric comes back, it's just bing, bing, bing. It's like, it was great though. 2 weeks he was in there, or 3 weeks. He was like, you're firing off each other. You're looking at each other. It's not, you're distracted by the dogs barking or the mailman or whatever. Or, sorry, the letter carrier.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying that, Tim.
I wouldn't have known who you were talking about.
What Bart Simpson said one time on The Simpsons, the female man.
That's good.
Thank you for plugging the show. Yeah, we're firing on all cylinders. It's been great, and plus being in the building, you can't beat that.
No, can't beat it.
Well, you mentioned Forged with Fire. I started watching that because y'all were talking about it so much on the show. That is an addictive show, and so many of the things that y'all talk about, I end up you get down that rabbit hole, and it's like I see why they were so excited about this one. So, I mean, and y'all plug too much stuff to watch.
Right.
I mean, there's no way to
Not
watch or
me,
listen to
Jeff
everything.
and Dustin. I don't watch an awful lot.
Oh my gosh. Like when Jeff starts plugging stuff, I'm like, do you work? Or do you
He works too. He can watch and work. But that show, though, the thing that really caught me about Forged in Fire is that the positivity. It's all positive. Even when they don't make it, the host is like, you didn't do, but you hung in there. You did, but you have to leave, but you did this. But it's so positive, and people are being creative, and there's guys, sometimes they have women contestants, but it's usually men, and they're creating, and it just had such a good vibe. That's why I continued to watch it, because there's tons of reality shows that don't have that, and this one has a good one, and you achieve something, and you're making something with your hands, and everybody's kind of cool. The hosts are cool, the judges, whatever.
Yeah, I was kind of the same way with Moonshiners. I don't know if you've watched that.
I haven't, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, and it's kind of that same way, that it's these guys, even though they're competing against each other, they'll help each other out or make suggestions, or if one guy's sour mash goes bad or whatever, somebody will help them out. And it's that same thing. It's competitive, but it's a good, you get that good vibe out of those guys, and you feel like I could be friends with them.
Yeah.
And so you really enjoy it, and it's such a breath of fresh air when you find a show like that in the sea of crap that we swim in.
Yeah, we call that
day,
news,
where everybody's just
I don't watch
on
that.
each other.
Look, I will say, as we're starting to wind down, because I know your time is short, I try to stay positive. I'm a realist. I don't want to become a pessimist. I really want to believe that with your child coming into the world, my kids are at that point where they're looking for mates, and hopefully they're going to be having kids, that the pendulum's going to swing the other way, that we're going to get back to we can have a sense of humor. We can actually do things. We can be individuals again. We can actually have different ideas and still yuck it up and laugh and have a good time. I go back to one of my favorite Shakespeare quotes of all time is, he says, "Let us do as those in law, strive mightily, but eat and drink as friends." And the whole point was, as lawyers, you may be on opposite sides of the argument. And so in court, you're going to argue for your client. But when you're done, you go out and you have a good time and you eat and drink as friends, because your job is your job, but your life is your life. And I wanted people to start separating the two. We don't have to be living in constant my side versus your side, because you know what? Everyone's different. Everyone's unique. We should learn more and listen more rather than try to paint ourselves in corners and say, screw you.
I hope you're right about that. I really do, especially for when our son is born, to grow into a world, I think of it like this, we have a lot of people in the country who came here in the last 20 years and they're having kids. And so, we didn't really have a big spike in immigration like that. Prior to that, it was in the late 1800s and stuff. So what you have is the American melting pot has to settle down and people have to go about their lives. And then, it'll bubble up and we'll be, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, Italian and Polish and people came from all over Europe, wherever they came, they had problems with each other that they brought with them from Europe. Well, all that stuff went away. Mm-hmm. And I think you're seeing that now.
I hope so.
With new people. And it makes me happy to think that'll happen.
A lot of the folks that I know that are first generation that came here legitimately and they're bringing up their kids, they're raising their kids to say, appreciate what you have. And there is something to be said about people that immigrate from places that are shitholes. I don't mean to say that in a negative way, but compared to the United States, they are thankful for the United States, Yeah,
most people that come here because it's the United States and they have an opportunity to succeed and start a business and make some money and have a better life. And so with that, they keep their cultural heritage, but they also embrace, we don't have a cultural identity in this country. I mean, maybe we did at one time, I don't know, but we didn't grow up in that. But what we have is our Constitution and our history, and there's good and bad in it, of course. But the good thing is that it's just kept going, mm-hmm. and I think if you can cling to that, it can give you hope, and that's what I choose to do instead of just. I do plenty of that, but I don't.
I am so with you. It's look, there's no place in the world that has a better chance for you to succeed at whatever it is you dream, as long as you're willing to work for it, and that's here. No guarantee of success, but best odds are here.
Yep. I agree.
Well, and I like to think that we learn from those bad things, mm-hmm. and that we're able to move forward from those. And
not me, I cling to my failures.
They're what make me who I am today.
I'm angry all the time. So you wanted me, I got to wrap it up, guys, but you wanted me to tell you what I was, well, I'll let you be the host. Sorry.
No, you can. You know what, Tim? You are so far above us and have done so much more than us. And the fact is, in about 3 weeks, we're going to be laughing at the fact that you won't have had time to watch a single movie. You won't be able to have any energy. You'll be sleep deprived for the first 12 months of your life. So we're going to let you have your moment in the sunshine. We'll add that now. Yes. First off, what are you watching? Right. What shows are worth checking out?
Reading, right, and watching and stuff. I got addicted to Snowfall, which is originally on FX. It's still on FX, but I was way behind, and I watched 4 seasons of it in I think a month. And it's an amazing show. It's got a Wire vibe. It's got a Sopranos in that vein. Great acting, unbelievable acting and writing. And that's, there's not a lot of that. There's lots of shows, but there's not a lot of good shows. And then Invincible, which is an animated show on Prime. It's kind of an anti-hero, Robert Kirkman from The Walking Dead.
Oh, yeah.
The comic book. Yeah, I found it to be enjoyable. I like all the voice actors, and it's really, there's a lot of teen stuff in there that I can't really relate to, but that's why they have the 10-second skip ahead button. Well, I mean, I watched the 4-hour Justice League movie, and anytime it was just Amy Adams and Clark Kent's mother, I would hit that little button. Anyway, and then there's a show that Jeff and Steph from Radio Labyrinth got me into called Frank from Ireland. I had no idea what it was about. I turned it on, I watched it. I think it's Domhnall Gleeson and his brother and their father Gleeson. They're all the Irish Skarsgårds, as somebody described them as. But Frank from Ireland, a half hour, kind of a sitcom on Prime. Holy cow, it's funny.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then I listen to tons of podcasts. Talking Sopranos is my weekly can't miss. And I love those guys. I think they're funny together. And I'm reading the Dark Tower series for the 8 millionth time. But we're thinking about doing a podcast about it. So I wanted to get into it again.
Excellent.
Okay, you can't tell me that our phones aren't listening, because I picked up my phone to add Frank of Ireland to my watch list, and the first suggestion is Frank of Ireland that popped up on my screen when I went into Prime.
Crazy.
Awesome.
It's crazy, man. I got to ask you, since you mentioned the 4-hour Justice League, because I kind of fell out of the DC universe after I tried to make it through Suicide Squad, couldn't do it, and then could not stand Batman vs. Superman, and I just didn't even bother with Justice League. Was it worth watching the recut?
I didn't mind Superman and Batman are my favorites, and I loved them since I was a kid. And
I love them. That's why I hated the Zack Snyder version.
Yeah.
But I kind of got into it a little bit. The Batman, I knew it was too long and there was a lot of weird stuff in it. But then Justice League came out and it was so laughably terrible. The original, it was just awful. Like, who are these characters? Blah, 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 blah. The Zack Snyder cut fixes all that problem. To me, it's the first comic book movie I've ever watched that felt like I was reading a comic book. Take the time to show the scenes, felt like you were turning the page on a graphic novel where there isn't a lot of dialogue, but you can move your eyes through it and see what's going on. It really had that feeling for me. And he fixed the coloring and he put backstory in for a lot of the characters. And then there's stuff that he shot afterward that he added. The only thing that I didn't like about it was, besides the Amy Adams and, the Martha Kent stuff, was the Joker part. I mean, it was kind of cool. It didn't really fit, but I don't like what's his face is the Jared Leto as the
Jared
Joker.
Leto is a horrible Joker. Horrible. Worst Joker ever.
Yeah.
Worst ever.
He's no Cesar Romero. That's all I have to say.
Well, let me ask this, because the only thing that might pull me back, and I know you got to go, but because we're talking culture and movies, the only thing that I think I'm really looking forward to back in the DC universe is the Suicide Squad, because James Gunn wrote it, James Gunn directed it, and from the first trailer that James Gunn released, it looks like he had the ability to release the movie he wanted to make.
I believe that you're correct. So I'm going to go into that with positivity. I just read on Twitter today that Michael Keaton is going to be playing Batman in the Flash movie. So I might be into that as well.
Oh, I would definitely watch that.
That would be cool to bring him back.
Dangling a carrot. Here, Gen X, we know you don't like the Flash, but here, Batman.
Is it entirely possible DC can kind of figure it out after they try to go too fast to catch up to Marvel? I think that's their problem. They tried to catch Marvel and they couldn't do it.
Right. No, I don't know if they will or they won't. I don't think there'll be another Zack Snyder type film like Justice League, but who knows? They have, because you hear about all the problems on the set, or this and that, or this actor was mean and da-da-da-da-da. All that distracting stuff, just make the movies.
Mm-hmm. All right, Tim, since we got to let you go, since you're getting ready to record your own episode tonight, remind everybody how they can either engage with you, follow your shows, whatever you've got social media-wise. How can people who have listened to you, found you for the first time, how can they interact?
They can, if you're interested in listening to my podcast with my co-hosts, Jeff, Steph, and Dustin, you can go to any podcatcher or even YouTube and just type in Radio Labyrinth and you'll find us. I'm on daily on the Von Haessler Doctrine, which is on WSB Radio. You can get the WSB Radio app and occasionally even hear Alan. And you fill in sometimes for Eric.
Every now and then.
You got his laugh. I can't do that.
Stop. Can't do the half smutly or mutley and
Smutly.
Whoever did that, you got it. I can't do that. Or if you want to follow me on Twitter, go to at Tim Andrews here. That is my Twitter. So,
Tim, thank you so much for joining us. As soon-to-be parents, obviously, we will throw this out. Reach out anytime. Walt and I have enjoyed everything you guys have brought us in terms of entertainment. If there's anything we can do to help, let us know.
Same here, and we look forward to having you guys back on Radio Labyrinth at some point.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Take care, buddy.
You too, guys.
Bud.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Now what do I do here?
Just hang up and just get the fuck away so I can finish this show without you.
Leave. All right, bye.
Bye.
Oh, my gosh.
Isn't it cool when you can just have a show like this? Like, it wasn't the typical. It didn't have to be, which is fine. We didn't want a typical.
Right. Yeah, I really came into this episode with no agenda. I just wanted to talk to Tim.
That's it. Well, the biggest thing I knew, first time parent as a 50-year-old, I'm trying to imagine this. Okay. And by the way, I'm keeping this in the show, what we're talking about.
Okay,
right
then
now.
I'll try to keep it clean.
When my beloved bride, who was my best friend first, we talked about that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
About 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago now, she had that little look in her eye. She said, "We have 4 amazing daughters. 2 from my marriage, 2 from yours. They all get along. But you and I haven't really made a child. What do you think?" I was like, "Oh, well, let me ponder." I came home the next day with a puppy. I'm like, "Babe, I appreciate that, and part of my vanity, certainly, how cool would it be to have a child with my genes and your genes? I mean, but on the flip side, all our kids can dress themselves, wipe their own butts, and they're going to school, and I'm looking at the timeline. I don't want to be 50 and still have a kid in elementary school."
Right.
And she said afterwards, she's like, I still think it would have been cool, but I think it was just one of those things where as a mom, I realized I was getting older and I either have another one or I'll never have another one again.
Right.
But I think, and she has told me, unless she's lying, I'm glad we had the puppy. I didn't necessarily mean it, but there was always that little part of me that goes, what would that child have looked like? And I feel the same way. Sometimes you wonder, but we have 4 amazing girls, and I didn't want to mess with that formula.
Yeah, well, and you also kind of get to that point. I mean, like you said, you start looking at how old will I be when?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, let's see. So I would be, if I had a kid today, I would be 71 when they graduate from high school. So yeah, you start kind of now. If I had never had one before, I would certainly be more open.
I'm not trying to make it a negative on Tim and anything as our guest. I just think his situation, I know, and I'm glad he said it, they tried forever. And I know there were several, hey, we think it took, and then it didn't. And that's just, it's just heartbreaking. So I am so happy
we
for
went
him.
Through that whole, fertility issue. It's tough.
It is especially when you want a child, when you want one. There's some people I know, they're like, I don't never want a child. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I don't get that. I don't get those people. I've always wanted to be a dad. It's just weird. I've always wanted to have kids.
I was always kind of neutral, but
oh, you were Switzerland?
Got to my mid 20s or late 20s and had gotten married. And then it's like, yeah, I definitely want kids. I definitely, I hit that age and a lot of my friends were having kids and all that. So I'm kind of like, okay, I can live vicariously or, and so, but I would not trade it for anything. Of all the things I've done in my life, I've had so many cool experiences. I've gotten to do so many cool things, but being a dad far outweighs all of them.
I say that all the time. I've been able to play Shakespearean characters. I've been on movie sets. I've been in independent films. I've even been in a scene with Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done some pretty cool. I was in the Navy. There's no role in my life I've ever played that's been better than being a dad.
No, I agree. And I mean, we both have such a cool resume with, I worked in Yellowstone National Park for a summer. I have, been in Star Trek. I've done all kinds of crazy stuff and met cool people. And
you're a private detective. They make sitcoms, not sitcoms. I guess they make sitcoms. They make dramas on television based in your field.
Yeah. And it's a ball. I mean, I love doing it. I mean, tomorrow night we've got to go like at 2 a.m. to a shooting scene and film. I mean, who gets to do that crap in their job,
Mm-hmm.
So, but being a dad is the best.
There's something about it, and maybe because you and I were raised as Gen Xers and we were raised by parents who were raised by boomers, or maybe our parents technically qualify as boomers. I think we recognize that they are the next line, and we recognize they carry on a part of us. And if you don't have children, who carries on who you are?
Yeah. Well, I just remember Mary was maybe 8 months old, and we went to the aquarium in Chattanooga. Which, if you've never been to the Chattanooga Aquarium, you gotta go.
It's pretty
really
cool.
awesome.
I mean,
Yeah.
the Atlanta Aquarium's great, but there's something that's kind of neat about the way you kind of start at the top and work your
Yeah.
way down through all the different biomes and ecosystems.
Yes, and the way that the walkways are slanted and they're right against the glass almost at places, and so it's a really cool thing. And at one point, the light was shining in from the top, the sun was shining in, and the sharks were swimming by, or some big fish were swimming by. And I remember looking over at Mary, and she's sitting in her stroller, and she is just mesmerized and just totally enthralled with what she was seeing. And it was the greatest feeling to see that, and to just think about what's going on in that brain. And so you have those great experiences. And then, of course, we're going through, they've got those talking birds, the macaws or something, that talk. And we're going through, and I don't know what Heather had gotten into, but the macaws were like, Heather, quit, Heather, quit.
They knew her name.
They knew her name. I mean, and we were in front of them for maybe like 30 seconds.
So they picked up on you and your wife going, Heather, stop it. Heather, quit.
Yep.
Heather, quit. Heather,
and I was like, I wish now that we had phones with video at the time, but or we didn't even think about it, I guess. But it was the greatest thing. I mean, we just had such an awesome time. And then to have that, and it's like, gosh, I wish I had filmed that. So, but yeah, it's great. I mean, even the mundane days are great.
Well, as we continue on, which is my role here to kind of keep the show rolling, you said something about film and movie, and I don't know. Didn't you watch a bad movie recently?
Well, I was going to say, Alan, it's about that time. Speaking of mundane.
Let me go ahead and introduce it. This is that part of the show where our listeners, you put out a poll, they picked a movie, and so this is a segment we like to call, God, what is this? Stop it! I didn't get me out of this hell!
And it's aptly named. This week, we voted for the great 2016 film classic, Ice Sharks. Frickin' Ice Sharks, people.
Ice Shark. I did not vote for Ice Sharks. I'll tell you.
No,
that.
You didn't. I remember seeing what you voted for, and I can't remember what it was.
I figured we've had enough of frickin' sharks.
Dadgum, man, like every movie in this genre has sharks in it. I mean, you can't pick 3 films without a shark showing up.
I can't remember the name of the film off the top of my head at the moment. I suppose we could pull it up right now. But it felt like it would have been more like an adventure buddy kind of movie, or sort of like a something different. I didn't want inanimate objects that are eating people, and I didn't want sharks. I'm like, we're ready for something new. Oh, well.
Yeah, we tried that with Space Trucker Bruce, and we got bit in the ass by that. So, well, Ice Sharks is a different animal in this world. The description on IMDb is a group of scientists at a research facility based on Antarctica battle a breed of sharks that have invaded Antarctic waters. Got some potential, right?
Okay.
Does not live up to it.
Oh.
So the 3.0 rating that 1,164 people on IMDb have given it is probably about right.
That is the lowest IMDb rating of all of them so far.
All of them. I think Space Trucker Bruce was even higher than this.
Yeah.
Which is unfounded. But there are a couple of interesting
Which
things
makes
about
me
this
actually
movie.
wonder about the average intelligence of the average IMDb user, because when most of these are getting like 5s and 5.6s, 5.8s, I would think that that's like an average movie. You haven't described an average movie pretty much yet.
No, I don't know what they're basing this on, but from watchability, I will tell you that this one is better than some of the others that we've watched. The Space Trucker Bruce, that horrible cat movie. This is actually watchable. You probably have to do what I do, take it in chunks. I watched maybe half of it.
Wait, how long is it?
It is probably about 90 minutes.
Okay.
Oh, they've got an hour and 25.
Okay.
So I'd say about 45, 50 minutes in. Go take a walk, feed the dog.
Paint a room.
run in front of a train,
clip your toenails, snake the drain.
Pretty much anything other than watch the second half of the movie. Because it is not great.
Now, let me ask you this, because a lot of these movies I get, I think even the filmmakers know they're making a campy movie, but does it at least start with a premise that you feel like, okay, there's something here and it just fails in execution, or is it bad from the very beginning?
There are some that have started and you felt like that they were actually going to be something and they crash and burn. This one is fairly consistent throughout. I think the weakness is when you're doing one of these movies, it's hard to care about the characters. And I think a couple of weeks ago, I had commented, somebody gave me a hard time about this, that I was hoping that both the character and the actor would be killed. And and I really did hope that. This one, it's good. It's not great. It's kind of flat. CGI is not awesome. The acting is surprisingly horrible. And some of these people have been in some big stuff. I'm not going to bore you with all that. But the acting overall, C+, but for a movie like this, probably a little bit better than that. The writing was not good. This is not a good story. There are a couple of parts that you're like, I can suspend my understanding of science and human, abilities to breathe and things like that. But like they're riding around Antarctica on snowmobiles with their faces exposed. And you're like, no, man.
It would never, no, it's too cold.
Right. It just gets stupid. Now, one thing that I thought was cool, there is a cool piece of trivia about this movie though, Alan. And that is, let me just give you a little quiz here. Tell me what these names mean to you.
Okay.
McReady, Palmer, Childs, and Knowles.
Well, those would all be from The Thing. That would be John Carpenter's The Thing.
Great homage moments to The Thing. And these are characters in this movie.
I mean, so there's no way to not draw those comparisons with those four names.
That's right. And so you do see that, but you have no doubt that the monster is the sharks. The CGI was oddly bad for these movies. Usually they'll have a great white shark or great white sharks. This one had weird variants on sharks that were all over the place. And then they started calling them greenies because they're from Greenland or something. It was really dumb.
Okay, so you know the old joke about Greenland and Iceland, right? Greenland was called Greenland by people who realized there was absolutely nothing worthwhile there. And Iceland had beautiful, just gorgeous scenery, just fantastic views, just a beautiful island. And so they initially called Greenland to convince people that was the beautiful place. And they called Iceland so nobody would find it so they could keep it to themselves.
Okay. Well, I can see that. And these sharks supposedly, and Greenland, of course, is about as far north as you can get. Antarctica is about as far south as you can get. And these sharks had shown up from Greenland. It was just...
Well, they migrate like the birds, I guess, like the swallows that they drink the beer in Capistrano.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's...
Whatever that line is from Dumb and Dumber.
That... And that would fit this movie.
Like the beer that flows from the swallows of Capistrano. Wait, what?
Well, there's one other thing about this movie I think that drove me a little nuts is the writing was terrible. I mean, the writing was so bad. And one of the great lines is one of the characters says, "I have an idea." And one of the other characters says, "Ideas are good." And I was like, that pretty much explains this whole movie. Just crappy, subpar. They weren't even trying. I think that was the feeling I got through the whole thing. The only sexual tension in the whole movie, you're like, the tension is no, please don't. Please don't have sex. Please don't get together. And for God's sake, please don't make us a part of this. There is also a scene where they scuba dive. Mm-hmm. And of course, in waters in Antarctica, there's one thing when you think about the waters of Antarctica, Alan, what might that be?
I'm thinking cold.
Cold. They're not cold. And it's not desolate. I think they shot this off of Florida. It's a full ecosystem with plants growing everywhere, pools of fish. And Alan just spewed his drink all over his microphone. So I wish y'all could see this. Andy just saluted me.
Oh my God. I swear to God, I almost died. I almost died on this podcast because of a shitty frozen shark movie.
I think you just summed up this whole piece of garbage right there.
I mean, you may trust the Gordon's fisherman in your frozen food aisle, but not on frickin' television. Dude, I was not expecting that. I took a sip, and then I was like, I'm gonna fucking choke. I'm gonna fucking choke. I can't even move. You saw me.
Well, and the ecosystem was so rich that if that really was true, like every fisherman would be fishing the waters of Antarctica. I mean, it was insane. So the distractions in this movie were incredible. I hope that Robert E.G. Black will do this movie a minute at a time, because he is the only person that can make a movie by minute about this and make it reasonably listenable. But this is a terrible movie. But if you like bad movies, I'd say you can watch it. It's definitely more watchable than Space Trucker Bruce or Meowoween or whatever that crap-tastic thing was. You don't really care about the characters, and towards the end, you're just kind of happy it's over. But it's okay. It's okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's fine.
Okay. So better than the last several weeks, actually.
Yes, this was definitely better than what I've been.
The fact that the writers and the whoever the creative genius is behind this piece of shit put 4 names from John Carpenter's The Thing, you just got to say, okay, well, we're going to give you props for trying.
I think that if you and I sat down at Waffle House and wrote a movie one afternoon, this is kind of how good it would be.
Hey, dude, I could write a better movie than this.
You could write yeah. I mean,
but
we would
as
not
far
make
as
this
funding, this would be this would be the movie we could be funded.
Yes. Well, and I guess the thing about this is it does have those weird moments where you're like, wow, that was a pretty smart thing that they just did or just said, and then you had the rest of the movie. So it was tough finding the gems in the pile here, but there were a couple, but not many.
Mm-hmm.
So so that's it. That's Ice Sharks. Thanks, folks. We'll have another poll up soon here for hopefully a better week. But I forgot one other thing. One of the guys gets eaten on the ice. The shark jumps out of the water. He makes a hole in the ice and jumps out of the water and eats the guy. And when he's laying there on the ground, the shark had ripped his leg off. It looks like he has a pile of hams for a leg. It is the weirdest, most awkward thing. And you're like, has nobody that works on this film ever taken a biology class or seen a human leg? It just doesn't work. So that, I think, is one of the other moments of the movie that I was like, this kind of epitomizes what I'm watching here. It's dumb. It's moronic, but it's better than Space Trucker Bruce.
And better than Killer Donuts?
Ooh, it's probably right there with Killer Donuts. Just thinking back on it and watching some other movies, Killer Donuts has kind of risen in my ranks a little bit, even though I don't recommend it. It's risen a little bit.
Okay, cool. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our news segment, a segment we like to call
It's No Bullshit.
And Walt, traditionally, you get the first news story.
Well, Alan, I've got some great news today. This one comes from abcnews.com. Suspected poacher killed by elephants at South African National Park.
I love these stories.
Yeah, this is a great one. A suspected poacher was killed by a herd of breeding elephants.
Oh my God, not just one, a herd.
A herd that he encountered while fleeing from park rangers, according to South African officials. 3 people attempted to run away after they were spotted by rangers at the Kruger National Park, one of Africa's largest game reserves,
Wait a minute.
on Saturday.
Kruger?
Yes, the souls of the children. Give me strength.
So he was impaled like by Freddy Krueger?
Exactly, at Freddy Krueger's National Park. After one of the suspects was captured, he told park rangers the group had run into a herd of elephants, adding that he was not sure if his alleged accomplice had managed to escape.
I don't think he made it.
Well, you don't have to, as long as you're the fastest, I guess you're fine. Rangers later discovered...
Dude,
that
what's that stuff between the elephant's toes? The slow dude.
Right. Yeah, because Rangers later discovered the man, quote unquote, badly trampled and dead from his injuries.
Good. You know what?
Investigators
I don't normally cheer the death of others, but poachers, boom, you got what you deserve.
I'm 100% with you.
You mess with the bull, you get the horns.
Well, investigators say that they're still searching for the third suspect, who continued to flee after he suffered an injury to the eye.
Wait for one of them to have a bowel movement. You'll find him.
Exactly. You're going to find him. The men are suspected of attempting to poach rhinos, according to officials. A rifle and axe were recovered amid the investigation, officials said. The campaign against poaching is the responsibility of all of us. It threatens many livelihoods, destroys families, and takes much needed resources to fight crime, which could be used for creating jobs and development, Gareth Coleman, managing executive of Kruger National Park, said in a statement.
It's no bullshit.
Excellent. I love it. I'm sorry. I know we should value human life, but when you decide to poach animals that are protected, animals that there's no reason to hurt them, and you go after them, I don't care if you are the victim of survival of the fittest.
Well, and I think it's great that the animals are the ones who got the revenge.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I have no issue whatsoever. I remember a couple of years ago, there was a story about some guys who were trying to kill lions, and one guy got mauled and eaten to death. And they were like, should we kill the lions? I'm like, absolutely not. That jackass deserved to be somebody's, gourmet meal.
Well, it drove me crazy when I was in Yellowstone and a bear had eaten human food because some moron was, feeding him sandwiches. So the bear, instead of getting relocated, got euthanized because now he had tasted human food and he would hunt down every picnic area.
He'd want to go to, yeah, exactly. That's why you don't do that shit, numbskulls.
So good riddance to the poachers.
I agree. All right. Well, I've got, I don't think it's related, but, maybe there's a lesson learned here. I have a story of a young man who enjoyed his energy drinks. Many people love to get their morning cup of joe. I mean, I know I drank a ton of coffee, easily 3 mugs a day. But one of the things you shouldn't do is drink these kind of energy drinks as much as this 20-year-old United Kingdom university student did. It's nothing unusual for college students to get a bit of an afternoon energy boost from drinking, like a cup of coffee or something, but in this case, we have one student who went way too far. According to a recent case study, this student drank 4 16-ounce cans of energy drinks every single day for 2 years.
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
Yikes.
Apparently, he started to develop some heart murmurs. He said he started to feel like his heart was palpitating, and then all of a sudden he'd feel like he would his dry mouth, and he would just feel like the shakes. So he decided, after getting migraine headaches, to go to the doctor. Well, at the hospital, the doctors ran the man through a gauntlet of tests. As a result, they diagnosed him not with 1, but 2 potentially lethal conditions. First of all, his heart was about to give up. The man was experiencing advanced stages of heart failure.
It's a core meltdown, sir. It can't be stopped.
Now, on top of that, his kidneys had also failed.
Oh my gosh.
Doctors told him that he might very well be facing a double organ transplant. Now, the reason behind the student's heart failures weren't initially clear. The doctors suspected a number of causes, including the interestingly named broken heart syndrome. However, none suggested the conditions that fit the man's medical history. So the doctors came to the only reasonable conclusion: The student's excessive energy drink habits had messed up his heart. Overconsumption of energy drinks had previously been linked to heart issues in the past, such as irregular heartbeat and high blood pressure, and several other young people have experienced heart attacks from drinking too much caffeine.
Brutal.
What?
Yeah. Now, the kidney failure, they feel like that's biological and it just happened to be caught because of the heart. So they can't blame the kidney failure on the energy drinks. But check this out. This 21-year-old stayed 58 days in the hospital to finally get stabilized enough to go home. But he didn't leave the hospital alone. He has to now take a cocktail of heart medications every single day. Now, obviously, he quit drinking energy drink cold turkey.
My gosh.
Yeah. This reasonable reaction seems to indicate that his heart problem was in fact caused by the overindulgence of these caffeine drinks. After quitting the energy drinks, the young man's condition started rapidly improving. He's now reached a point where the doctors believe he doesn't need a heart transplant, but he still needs a kidney transplant. Once again, probably unrelated, but it was only discovered because his heart was failing from overindulgence of these energy drinks.
It's no bullshit.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that crazy?
So I guess too much of a good thing?
Yeah. Look, drink the natural stuff. 3 cups of coffee, you're fine. Did you realize one energy drink is probably double the strongest coffee you could drink right now?
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. And coffee's fine, folks. We've been doing it for generations. It's great.
Look, I've gotten to my point. I drink either coffee, water, or maybe an adult beverage. That's it. No sodas, no sports drinks, nothing sugar. It's one of those 3.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're not sponsored by any colas, right? So I can say this. My doctor calls colas and sweet tea death in a cup.
Mm-hmm.
So just take that for what it's worth. All right, Alan. So the Oregonian, which is one of the classic newspapers in the United States, says firefighters encounter large African savanna cat while battling Clark County house fire. Clark County firefighters said a large African cat bit a firefighter, helping to extinguish a blaze Sunday in a home in the Fieldia neighborhood north of Vancouver. Clark County Fire District 6 officials said a fire broke out in the back of a single-story home Sunday, then spread to the home's attic. The homeowner was trying to douse the flames as firefighters arrived. Firefighters got the fire under control within 25 minutes, but at least one encountered the serval, a savanna wildcat native to sub-Saharan Africa, and suffered a minor injury from a bite to the finger. Officials estimated the cat weighed 60 to 70 pounds, though the cats typically only weigh up to 40 pounds in the wild.
Wow.
So that's a big, fat, mad cat. With the fire out, the firefighters decided to close up the house with the cat inside until the homeowner and animal control officials could contain it. It was later captured safely. Fire district officials said the serval was unharmed and just a little freaked out.
Wow. Well, by the way, have you seen that video that went viral the last couple of days about the bobcat that suddenly attacked a man's wife in their front yard? And he went and grabbed it and he threw it across his yard and he kept chasing his wife?
No.
Yeah, you hear him on security camera. He's like, "Oh my God, it's a bobcat."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, bobcat's no joke, man. Don't mess with a bobcat.
Well, this is a much bigger if it's 65 to 70 pounds.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be 40. I think they are feeding it pizza and other things that they shouldn't.
Wow.
So, so that is from the Oregonian. And, I think the last story I had about cats was from the Oregonian. That was the one where they were throwing the stray cats into the
feral cats into the yoga.
I still love that story. I should read that story again.
That story we could hardly get through without dying with laughter. That was good stuff.
I mean, welcome to yoga. Here's our box of cats. Makes no damn sense. So anyway.
All right. Well, everybody needs a hobby. And no matter how inconsequential it is, any hobby becomes infinitely more enjoyable when you share it with like-minded people. But in this case, sharing your hobby turned out to be the worst possible decision. An Italian mafia boss's love for his native country's cooking led to his arrest just a couple of weeks ago.
Do you mind telling me what this is all about, mister?
Marc Ferrin Claude Biart, age 53, is suspected of being a big player in the Calabrian Ndrangheta crime syndicate.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, it's easy for me to say. Yeah, I don't even think I said it right. Italian authorities ordered his arrest in 2014 for alleged cocaine trafficking in the Netherlands. However, Biart was never arrested. He seemed to simply just vanish. Police had no clue where he might be. Well, we now know that Biart actually moved to the town of Boca Chica in the Dominican Republic. Now, how do we know this? Well, first, he kept a low profile, led a quiet life, and known to the locals only by his first name. And had he kept that up, he just might have avoided the long arm of the law for good. But his interest in cooking turned out to be the harbinger of his downfall. As it turns out, Biart is an enthusiastic amateur cook. He loves Italian cooking, and he wanted to share the cuisine of his home country with the rest of the world. So, he decided to do the same thing that every other hobbyist does these days. He started his very own YouTube channel.
Inconceivable! Oh my gosh, brilliant.
On the channel, Biart would share recipes and cooking techniques. At the same time, he'd extol the virtues of authentic Italian cuisine. Now, it doesn't seem like the smartest thing for a wanted fugitive to plaster himself onto the internet for all to see. But he wasn't so dumb. He did take some precautions. He never showed his face on a single video. So, how did this happen? According to the lieutenant who was responsible for the investigation, the cops never stopped looking for Biart. He may have evaded them in 2014, but the police had been trying to lock down his trail for the last 7 years. At some point, the police became aware of Biart's wife's activity on YouTube. Apparently, everybody in their house was deciding to become a YouTube influencer. We don't know whether the wife was posting her own videos on her platform, but whatever the case, the discovery eventually led the police to Biart's YouTube channel. All they had to do now was identify the man in the videos, but since he basically concealed his face the whole time, how are they going to do that? Well, Biart, he forgot about one significant identifying factor: his tattoos.
Outstanding.
Biart's sweet ink was plainly visible in every single video. The police compared Biart's known tattoos to the mysterious internet chef. After they confirmed that they had their man, it was simple enough to figure out where the videos had been uploaded from based on internet data. At the end of the month, the police arrested Biart in Boca Chica. He's now been extradited to Italy and is awaiting his trial. Oh, and his YouTube channel has been taken down.
It's amazing. It's astounding. But it's no bullshit.
What an idiot. Well, my dad always said that if criminals weren't stupid, we'd never catch them. Unbelievable.
I thought you might get a kick out of that, especially with your background.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, really, what a moron. Well, and I would bet in his workup, narcissist comes up quite often. I mean, how much of a narcissist do you have to be to know that you're wanted and start a YouTube channel because you got to get it out there?
Well, and he had the foresight enough to go, I just won't show my face.
Right.
And he's all tatted up on his arms.
Yeah.
Come on.
That's as good as a fingerprint.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, all right. It's time now for our entertainment segment. This is that moment where we say, what are we watching? What are we reading? What are we listening to? And Walt, we'll go to watching first. We already had Timmy Andrews weigh in earlier, so we already have all of his. What are you watching this past week?
Well, among other things, I know you're going to cover one of them, but there's a great stand-up show on Netflix, and the entertainer is just awesome. This is called "Why Would You Do That?" and the comedian is Sebastian Maniscalco. Have you heard this guy?
No.
I got down a rabbit hole one night on YouTube with this guy. And it'll pop up every once in a while on my Facebook feed. This guy is hilarious. I had not heard of him before, totally stumbled across him, and he is one of the funniest stand-up comics out there, in my opinion. Pretty clean. I can't think if I would let my young kids watch it, but he just has great insight into families, and he comes from a big Italian New York family. This guy is absolutely hilarious, and it is called Why Would You Do That? Sebastian Maniscalco. And Alan, everybody who I've pointed in this guy's direction has come back and been like, this guy's amazing. When's he coming to town? So I'm looking forward to all this craziness being done, and I hope this guy will go on tour again because he is fantastic, just phenomenal.
Sweet.
Also, my friend Bill had recommended a show that I just started watching. It's called This Is a Robbery, also on Netflix, and it's about the largest art heist in history. And I got into episode 1 and I'm hooked. I mean, it's really fascinating. So check that out too on Netflix. This Is a Robbery.
Very cool. All right. Well, you said I would probably have one. I'm assuming you mean The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
That is the one I was thinking about.
Yeah, that is a great show. Marvel doesn't seem to know how to do anything poorly. They may have a couple of their movies that I go, not quite as high as the other movies, but even their lowest movies are better than most other people's movies. I'm not just saying it because I'm a Marvel fan, because everybody that knows me knows I don't pull punches. I will tell you if your stuff sucks, if you have a shit product, I will tell you. I'm not going to pull punches. I just can't believe how good this is.
I agree with you. Every single week, it is almost like reaching a different level. And I love it. And, of course, the Marvel storyline, the MCU storyline is so solid. But you're right. I keep waiting for their fall, but it's not going to happen. Not anytime soon. They continue to keep that same high level. And I love it. I love this show. I'm going to have to finish watching it, and then I'm going to have to go back and binge it again.
It's so good. And these aren't like television shows. I know they come episodic. I know they're on the small screen, but these are mini movies. Yeah. Every week it's a mini film.
It is. And it's all based around one particular issue that they're dealing with. But I love the interaction between the characters. The actors have great chemistry. And so I love this show.
I just, much like with WandaVision, the fact that we get a backstory and some depth and texture to these people's lives, because in the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they were on a specific storyline and they could only show what was relevant to that storyline. Right. But the television show allows them to go into a much broader backstory. And we get to see home life. We get to see their inner demons. We get to see what they're dealing with. We get to see how they interact with each other. It's just, it adds so much texture and color to those characters.
Yeah, so I was going to say, when you see them as humans and you see their humanity, it does give you a whole different view of them. So, and two characters that really were not the huge focus of the MCU as it went through the 287 movies that they put out heading towards Endgame. So you really are able to dive in a little bit more into that universe in a different way.
The other thing I watched this week, and I highly suggest anyone who loves the classic Star Trek cast in the Star Trek II movie, The Wrath of Khan, go to YouTube, just put in a search, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan interviews. I had never stumbled across this behind-the-scenes making of Wrath of Khan. They've got interviews with, of course, William Shatner, but also with Ricardo Montalban. They've got behind-the-scenes shoots. They've got Leonard Nimoy. If you're as big a fan of the classic Wrath of Khan from the original cast, not the J.J. Abrams, but the original one, this was stuff I'd never seen before, interviews I'd never seen before, just randomly stumbled across it on YouTube. Check it out. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan interviews. Well worth watching. It's about 45 minutes to watch.
That is one of my favorite movies of all time.
It is. I never get tired of that movie.
I don't either.
I know everything that's coming. I can quote that movie. I know the lines that are coming before they're said, and I'll still watch it over and over and over.
From hell's heart, I stab at thee.
Stab thee.
For hate's sake, I spit.
Sake. my last breath at thee.
It's so awesome.
Oh,
so awesome.
So damn good. Oh.
Well, and you look at how good an actor Ricardo Montalban is. And he just shines in that movie. I mean, probably like he does in no other place in his career.
You know, it's probably the pinnacle of all of the original Star Trek movies.
Oh,
like the original cast.
No doubt.
I love 4. I thought 4 was great. It was sort of a great wrap up of the quote trilogy, because if you look at Star Trek 2, 3, and 4, they really all go together. But in all honesty, this is one of those series where the even numbers are the good movies and the odd numbers are the bad movies. Like 2, 4, and then 6 are all good. You know, 1, I get what 1 was trying to be, but it wasn't consumable. 3 and 5, horrible. I mean, 3 not horrible. You have Christopher Lloyd as the Admiral Kirk. I mean, you had, you know, it was great because I just heard him, the drunk guy from Taxi, but he was wearing the Klingon makeup. But that was okay. Star Trek 5 was just horrid.
Yes.
I don't like anything about Star Trek 5 at all. Period. None. I don't care if I ever see that again. 6 was actually not bad.
Yeah, and you're right. It is almost every other movie. And the thing with Star Trek that I've always liked is that the characters are endearing, and the storyline is always pretty good. You know, there are definitely flaws, and there are definitely soft moments in the original series, but for the most part, you like the characters and you love what's going on. But there are a couple of those movies, man. Just like you said, I can't watch them. I'm glad I watched them once, but I'll never go back to them.
Right. All right. Reading. Anything this week that you've been reading?
Oh, I've got a stack of books, but I'm not. I'm still working through, or I'm about to finish. I finally about finished the Van Halen book. I've just had way too much going on to spend much time reading. So it's again, I'll say, if you haven't been listening, great book by Noel Monk, Running with the Devil. Noel was the road manager for their first tour, and for Van Halen's first tour, and their manager for the rest of the time that David Lee Roth was with the band. He gives great insight, fantastic stories. So if you love Van Halen, check it out. Again, Running with the Devil by Noel Monk. He's a great guy. Like I've mentioned before, he responds to my questions, and still hoping to get him on the show. I just have not had time to read, so I'll knock that out this week.
All right. And let's get to, what are you listening to?
Yeah, 2 things that I wanted to plug. I actually had Radio Labyrinth on my list of things to plug today. We've already plugged it a little bit, but having Tim here, and I'm not kidding. We don't say this just because it's Tim and he's our buddy, but Radio Labyrinth is one of my favorite week-to-week podcasts, just because of what they cover. You feel like you're sitting in the room with them, and they're just it's a fun group of folks. And then the other one I've mentioned before too, I really am listening to this every day, which is not like me, but the Office Space Minute. Some of their episodes are 12 minutes, and some of their episodes have me and Alan on them. And that
they're not 12. It takes 12 minutes for us to introduce ourselves.
We are the worst. We are the worst.
I warn every single person who invites us. I'm like, how long are your episodes? Are you okay bringing us on anyway?
But they're always fun. And, you know, the guys that do Office Space Minute have also done Top Secret Minute, which I think both of us were on. I know I was on that one. So they knew what they were getting into. But it is I love Office Space. The movie is just one of my favorites. It's just hilarious and sad at the same time, having worked in an environment like that. But all of the guys doing the Office Space Minute are tech guys. So they've worked in this office with these people, and they can give a whole different take on this movie that I'm really enjoying. So, excellent. So those are the 2 big ones that I would recommend this week. There are bunches of others. Oh, there is one more that I want to mention. I stumbled across this totally by accident, and I think it's because I'm listening to the Marine Corps Minute guys all the time. So this one is called Warriors in Their Own Words. They go out and interview people who have been in combat and have them talk about what their experience was. The episode, there was a 2-part episode, I think it's episode 2 and 3, is a guy from World War I. And he talks about
Holy crap.
like mustard gas attacks and flipping tanks over in ditches and all kinds of crazy stuff. But he rose to the rank of lieutenant colonel. So that is great. The first one is tank warfare in World War II, which was just, to me, absolutely fascinating. And it's the guys who have been in the tanks and the guys who have been in the trenches, and hearing him talk about what it was like as an American to all of a sudden show up in these French trenches where they've been fighting for 4 years. And the command is get out of the trenches and get this war going. And so it is just absolutely fascinating. So again, check that out. It's by Evergreen Podcasts. It's Warriors in Their Own Words.
Okay. I've got a couple of things I've been listening to this week. A lot of it's because I've been doing outside work, a lot of projects, and so I can put things on in the headphones. Almost all of it has been music related. If you're an Iron Maiden fan, and I had never listened to the most recent double CD release that came out in 2016, The Book of Souls, until I stumbled across one of the songs, the longest song on this double CD that was released, called Empire of the Clouds. And it's about the British Empire at the time of the airships, the dirigibles.
Yeah.
Built one of the first dirigibles. It was so big the Titanic actually could fit inside the actual balloon or the blimp itself.
Oh, wow.
And apparently this particular dirigible, after all the designs, all the work, its maiden voyage, it ended up crashing in France, killing 48 people aboard.
Oh my gosh.
I had no idea the UK ever had this flagship, this initiative, and Bruce Dickinson wrote an entire song. He wrote it. He plays the piano on it, and of course, he's the frontman and the singer. If you've never heard that song, get the lyrics out and just listen. It is a musical treat. It is 18 plus minutes long, telling the story of the design, the launch, and the eventual crash of this particular vessel from history. It's awesome. And then so I started listening to the entire album, The Book of Souls. It's great. These guys are in their 60s, and they are rocking every bit as well and as hard as when they were young, but their construction, their music, you can feel they're a more mature Iron Maiden. It's awesome.
Well, I've always felt like they were a very underrated band, which is kind of crazy to say, being that they just sell out massive venues, and they're one of the best known bands from the 80s. But their talent and their writing is just phenomenal.
Their writing is off the chain. It's ridiculous. It's so good. Nightwish is the other heavy metal band I discovered from Finland thanks to watching some of the reaction videos. Nightwish is so good. If you like that symphonic sound as well as heavy metal, they are a modern heavy metal symphonic band. It's great. 2002, I've mentioned before, they are a new age group. Every now and then, when it gets dark outside, I want the dogs to chill. I just want everybody to calm down. I'll play that new age group, 2002. It's great. And podcast, I have been eating up History of the Marine Corps. It is so good to tell us modern history from the Revolution all the way, or pre-Revolution technically, all the way through to modern era. But it's the history of where the Marine Corps fit with various battles and initiatives in U.S. history. It's fantastic.
Well, and I'll make the point that they made in the podcast I was listening to from Evergreen. It doesn't matter what your politics are and what you think of the war or whatever. We're asking men and women to put on the uniform and go do a task. And these podcasts really celebrate those people and the amazing things that they do for our country. Mm-hmm. So if you have time, just check out that, History of the Marine Corps or any of these others. They're just really amazing. And
done in a way that doesn't feel like you're attending a class. It doesn't feel like a lecture, but yet I feel like I'm learning something.
Yeah. And particularly when you can hear it in the words of the men and women who are there.
So that's going to do it. That's everything I've been listening to.
Awesome.
So before we call it a day, Walt, I always give you the duty of telling people how they can learn a little bit more about us.
Best place to find out about us is our website, thewilderride.com. You'll see the history of our podcast, where we started out as young, innocent, wide-eyed podcasters trying our wares at the likes of Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, into the mature podcasters that we are today as Alan falls asleep.
The seasoned.
And you can find just about anything about us, our bios, our guest list, which we, which might help point you to some stuff if you want to join, like Tim and Jeff when they came on our podcast and talked about Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
So plenty to check out and look at. And
do you realize, as of today, Tim is our most frequent guest on this show?
I know, isn't that crazy?
That's
Even
crazy.
More than BK. He broke the BK wall.
I'm trying to think. Has Susan been on more than she's been on a couple of shows? I don't think we didn't interview her at all in season 3. So yeah, Tim is the most reprised guest of our season of our show.
True. That's true. So yeah. So, and he's definitely entertaining every time he's here. So, but check us out there. And then we would love it if you join our listeners group over on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/thewilderride. Follow us there, and then a button's going to pop up to join our listeners group. Just answer those 3 quick questions, and you're in. And we just talk about movies and entertainment. You can take the poll of what dumb movie I got to watch next and all that fun stuff. And also, if you are so inclined, go to patreon.com/thewilderride. Check out our offerings there. And if you want to help us out a little bit, it's a great place to throw us $1 or $2 just to keep the lights on here at the Wilder Ride.
You know, I have been remiss for these several weeks and not reminding people that we appreciate all of our patrons who are helping to support our show, whether it's $1 a month, $10 a month, or anywhere in between. Thank you, every one of our patrons. I'm going to make a point starting next week of just doing a quick segment for our patrons shout out. Every one of them deserves continued thanks for keeping everything, the lights on and everything afloat, all in 2020. And now that we're in 2021, we really appreciate it. And if you want to add yourself to that list, we would really, really thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't tell you how much we appreciate it.
All right. And don't forget to rate, review, and more importantly, share. If you've liked this episode, share it with your friends on social media. Let people know about it. TheWilderRide.com is the website, as Walt said, but you can find us at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under those same names. And you can subscribe on any podcatcher of choice by that name. Come on back next week. We've got a great guest coming up. His name is Pierre, but he goes by Pete Charette. He is one of the DEA agents who was actually raised in Montreal, spoke French, and actually helped the DEA break down the French Connection and other drug rings and other investigations in his entire career with the Drug Enforcement Agency. We're going to have Pete Charette join us right here on The Wilder Ride. And you're only going to catch it if you come back next week for The Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge.
Well, we got to have Tim back.
Yeah, I think.
Just going to say it right now.
We got to figure out a different day because every time we bring him on, he's always got a conflict. We don't get him long enough.
Yeah, well, and he's probably going to have a conflict for about the next 18 years.
Well, actually, what'll happen is he won't have a conflict. He'll just be at home, have nothing else to do.
Well, this is true.
Because we'll be happy to pause and let him go change a diaper.
Yeah, change a diaper.
Hey, come back in 15 minutes, feed the kid, put him back to bed. We'll come back. We'll hang out. We'll just grab a drink and wait and come on back.
Hey, we've been there, right?
Been there, done that, man. I paced trenches in my kitchen and my dining room, burping and rocking a child, trying to get him to sleep.
As you can imagine, Heather did not go for any of that. We drove.
And that drove. White noise, man.
And drove.
We would run the dishwasher, the vacuum cleaner, whatever white noise we could.
We're very successful. She was playing our